everybody? Welcome back to my video where I help uplift, encourage, and inspire others on how to be made in His image. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to all of this information about the Super Bowl, the train derailment in Ohio, UFOs being shot down, and a little bit more, but that's pretty much the main gist of everything, and it's going to be on Philip DeFranco's channel. Make sure that you guys go and like this video, and if you're more interested in a lot of his other content, check that out too. This is you guys' first time to my channel. Welcome, so happy to have you, and for those who are subscribed, welcome back, my sunflowers. Let's go ahead and get into this and talk about it, because this has just been a big thing, like in Ohio. I don't know if you guys have heard about it or not, but you're about to find out. Okay.
Derailment in Ohio is incredibly concerning for a number of reasons we got to talk about. The U.S. was shooting down UFOs left and right over the weekend. KSI is in his prime wordplay. We're going to talk about the worst, best Super Bowl. And actually, we're going to talk about all that and so much more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. So buckle up, hit that like button, and actually, quick awesome announcement. As I warned, most of the clothes I dropped last week are no longer available on Beautiful Back.
Comment down below if you guys watched the Super Bowl, and what did you guys think about it if you watched it?
On the evening of February 3rd, 50 cars of a Norfolk Southern train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, near the border with Pennsylvania, starting a large fire, with firefighters not able to immediately address the blaze because some of the train's cars were carrying toxic chemicals. This including vinyl chloride, a toxic flammable gas that's known to cause cancer in humans. It's typically used to make certain plastics like PVC and...
So there were how many train cars that he said, y'all? Because he's talking very fast. A 50-car freight train derailed in Ohio, causing a big fire, and with all of these cars, they were carrying toxic chemicals. Okay? Toxic chemicals. One of them known as vinyl chloride. It's a carcinogen, and its worst effects have generally been documented after long-term or high-volume exposure, according to federal reports. A lot of the people who live in this area are very afraid because, one, investigators who are questioning what happened are being arrested, which raises a red flag. Like, why are you guys arresting investigators for asking questions? Like, I have so many questions already. So why are people being arrested? And then two, a lot of the residents are fearful of what they're breathing in because it's toxic. It's very toxic. And so mixed with it, I know that it could cause like acid rain if it like reaches far enough into the environment or whatever. Like, all of these things mixed together are not good, to say the least.
Certain plastics like PVC, and while studies have shown it is most dangerous in high volume prolonged exposure, it emits dangerous byproducts when ignited, with one of the most concerning byproducts being phosgene, a chemical that was literally weaponized in World War I and can cause vomiting and breathing trouble, and another being hydrogen chloride, which can irritate the skin, eyes, nose, and throat.
And look how close, there's like homes right here, y'all. Like literally, like people live so close to this area. Look at this.
When ignited, with one of the most concerning byproducts being phosgene, a chemical that was literally weaponized in World War I and can cause vomiting and breathing trouble, and another being hydrogen chloride, which can irritate the skin, eyes, nose, and throat. So with this, you had Ohio officials announcing that they would be doing a controlled release of vinyl chloride to prevent a more dangerous situation, with Ohio Governor Mike DeWine explaining in a statement last Monday, the vinyl chloride contents of 5 rail cars are currently unstable and could potentially explode, causing deadly disbursement of shrapnel and toxic fumes. And going on to say, in that time period, so for at
Are
least
you
the
kidding
next year,
me?
we brought back the
I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to pause it.
Based on this information, state and local health officials determined that it is now safe for community members to return to their residences. And saying,
so first they were saying it was not safe, and now they're saying it's safe for them to move back to their homes because, you know, it was posing a threat. It was a threat for them. Residents living in the 1 by 2 mile area surrounding the derailment site in East Palestine, a town of nearly 5,000 people on Ohio's eastern edge, were told to evacuate or face arrest. They can't make up their own decisions, so they have to either evacuate or they get arrested. Wow, that's really extreme. Exposure to the released substances could cause skin burns, lung damage, or death, officials said. Law enforcement worked to clear the area ahead of the controlled release, but most people had already left, DeWine said. Okay. I just find that very odd, that they will be facing arrest. Maybe because they don't want to face being sued for any type of like illness or sickness that came from that accident. Anyone who remains in the red affected area is facing something, and anyone who remains in the yellow space area is at a high risk of severe injury, including skin burns and serious lung damage.
And serious lung damage. And later that day, we saw officials conducting that controlled release, which caused a very alarming-looking plume
look
that was
at
so
that.
thick it was recorded by the satellite of the National Weather Service, Cleveland. But by Monday, the Norfolk Southern Railroad said that the release had been completed successfully. And on Wednesday, you had a representative for the Environmental Protection Agency saying it was collecting air samples, and all of the readings we've been recording in the community have been at normal concentrations, normal backgrounds, which you find in almost any community. DeWine also echoing that in a statement the same day, informing all evacuees they could return home and saying air quality samples in the area of the wreckage and in nearby residential neighborhoods have consistently showed readings at points below safety screening levels for contaminants of concern. Based on this information, state and local health officials determined that it is now safe for community members to return to their residences, and saying that air monitoring will continue and that residents can have the air in their homes as well as the water in private wells tested for free. So by all official accounts, everything's totally fine. But many residents were understandably wary, especially amid reports of lingering negative effects. And a key thing I really want to hit on is that this situation is very weird and sticky right now, because a lot of the reporting here is coming from unverified claims circulating on social media, but also official sources have been oddly quiet about addressing these stories or even really providing follow-ups. And so with that said, we've seen reports of livestock and wild animals becoming sick and even dying since the derailment, though again, many of those claims come from unverified.
What did this say? There have been numerous reports of dead animals all over Ohio. The Norfolk Southern train derailment is a major ecological disaster, and people need to be criminally charged for this kind of gross negligence, or it's doomed to repeat itself. Leslie Run, coming out of East Palestine, Ohio. Wow, okay. See, and what am I looking at exactly? I don't even know what I'm looking at, guys. And I didn't get to see the one before that, but this is definitely a huge situation that's going on, and I would feel very weary too, living in that area. It's like, what? So now it's allegedly safe. How do we know as residents that it's safe?
Verified sources and pictures on social media. But also, an official did confirm that dead fish had been spotted in nearby waterways, with the EPA also saying some of the chemicals carried by the trains had seeped into the waterways and were immediately toxic to fish. But they also claimed that it had taken actions to minimize that, and that.
So then, if you've taken the actions to minimize that, why are animals still dying if it's safe to live there and if it's okay for the residents to still be there? Why are there still being all of these animals that are found passed away already if it's safe for human beings to be there breathing that area? Like, it's not making any sense. And why are people being arrested for trying to ask questions and get information? Because a lot of the stuff that's being spread around is through social media, because when investigators do go there to ask questions and do their job, they're being arrested.
And that drinking water was protected. Meanwhile, residents have told news outlets about lingering odors, with one telling the Washington Post that on some nights the air smells like an over-chlorinated swimming pool and his eyes burn. And so some residents who have the ability to go elsewhere have opted not to return to their homes for the time being, with one telling the Post the amount of chemicals that were spilled and burned don't simply just go away.
Right.
I don't believe there is any way to know the full effect until enough time passes, and that just isn't worth the risk. And here's the key thing. That is not a concern of just some random Joe Blow. That concern has also been echoed by experts who say that any residual chemical emissions pose a danger to people in the area. With Dana Barr, professor of environmental health, explaining, if you have a very small amount of vinyl chloride that was present in an area, it would evaporate within minutes to hours at the longest. But the problem they're facing here is that it's not just a small amount. And so if they can't contain what gets into the water or what gets into the soil, they may have this continuous off-gassing of vinyl chloride that has gotten into these areas. And adding, I probably would be more concerned about the chemicals in the air over the course of the next month. Other experts have also voiced their worries about the possibility that the plume may have created dioxins, which are formed from burning chlorinated carbon materials. Right, and very notably, not only are dioxins actually worse carcinogens than vinyl chloride, they stay in the ground and body for years. And in addition to dioxins, some leaders in public health have also flagged the possibility of uncombusted vinyl chloride vapors hanging around the area. This including Dr. Lynn Goldman, the dean of George Washington University's School of Public Health, saying, until there's been a thorough assessment, the soot, as well as any other materials, should in my opinion be treated as contaminated by vinyl chloride and or dioxins or other contaminants until proven otherwise. And this is both leading experts and local residents have expressed skepticism about whether the EPA has enough data to actually determine if the area area is safe. And to that point, the whole situation has been further complicated by the way that officials have been handling a lot of the information. Where the EPA has not even released a full list of chemicals the train was carrying, a fact that a former EPA regional administrator called unconscionable. The list has also not been published by the National Transportation Safety Board, and this lack of knowing is creating a lot of doubt, skepticism, and theories that officials are not being fully transparent. Theories which were further stoked by a bizarre incident we talked about last week where a reporter was arrested during a news conference where DeWine was discussing the derailment. And unfortunately, this is just where we are now, and we're going to have to wait to see what new information they put out there and how everything plays out. And unfortunately, it's not like a wait and see, that's going to be kind of interesting. It's, the small matter of if this is another environmental disaster that government officials mishandled and end up harming a lot of people. And in the meantime, there are already several lawsuits floating around, including one seeking medical testing and another that accuses Norfolk Southern of negligence, with many different groups saying that this should be a warning for possible train derailments that are due to corporate interests gutting rail protections, which is something that we're going to talk about, but even that alone could fill an entire show. So for now, this is where we are, and I'll pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts with all this? And then, let's talk some quickie entertainment news.
They're trying to cover up what happened.
Philly fans, how you feeling? Kansas City
fans, you guys comment
down
below what you think.
How'd you feel about that last holding penalty? Right, some have said this proves that the NFL's rigged. Others saying at the very least it shows the refs are not consistent, saying that up until that point, for the most part, they've just been letting the players play. And people in that group kind of just upset because they didn't get to see it play out the way that it might have played out. But as far as if it was a whole, James Bradbury, who was actually flagged for the play, he actually came out in support of the ref's call.
I pulled the jersey, they called holding. I was hoping they would let it ride.
Also, for the
what do you guys think? Okay, I didn't even really watch the game. We all really only watched the Super Bowl because of Rihanna, because she was performing, and I wanted to see the performance. My husband watched the game, of course, but did you guys actually watch the game? Were you really paying attention to what was going on? Or were you just waiting for Super Bowl halftime? Comment down below.
Non-sports people that watch the Super Bowl, was it me or did most of the ads suck?
They did.
I recall 3 of them, and in a week, really only the Tubi ad's gonna be the one that stays in my head, where they tricked probably millions of people into thinking someone grabbed the remote. Which, side note, Tubi, I don't know if you realize this, but I think you inadvertently got a lot of kids yelled at for a second. There's just something about electronics, when something messes up, people are like, blame the kids. Although I will say, while I already don't remember what was in the actual ad, you had Logan Paul and KSI putting out a Super Bowl ad for their drink Prime, which, whether you love them or hate them, you cannot deny it's kind of historic. It really highlights how big creator-led brands can become. And then, simple question, are you looking for low-hanging fruit to cut costs and save where you can with your business? Right, because with postage rates increasing again, Stamps.com has the best discounts in the industry. So thank you, Stamps.com/Phil, for being today's fantastic major marketplace and shopping cart. And I just love how convenient and cost-effective this is for me and the next beautiful bastard. It's a 4-week trial plus. This was about the size of a small car and was initially intercepted by F-35.
Oh, okay, so y'all, this is about the UFO.
And then, over the weekend, the U.S. shot down 3 UFOs over North America. And yes.
Did you just hear what he said? This past weekend, we shot down 3 UFOs. Not 1, not 2, but 3. Okay? And up until recently, they've been very quiet about these UFO sightings and stuff. And now they coming out and saying, oh, well, we just shot down 3. And everybody's like, oh, okay. Yeah, did you know Rihanna's pregnant? And it's like, why are you guys just ignoring the fact that 3 UFOs just got shot down? I feel like the Super Bowl is just one big distraction from a major big problem, especially with this spy balloon we just had. Shot that down. Nobody's really freaking out about that. That's a pretty big deal. And then 3 UFOs got shot down. Okay.
UFOs. Zilio is no longer you, they're UFOs. The first engagement happened over northern Alaska Friday afternoon. The object was about the size of a small car and was initially intercepted by F-35, with pilots observing no identifiable equipment or markings, just that it was silverish gray and cylindrical. And some of the pilots reported that the object was messing with their plane's sensors, while others said that it was hovering but also had no visual propulsion. Biden ordered the object to be shot down, and an F-22 shot it down, giving it its second air-to-air kill ever and its second that week. They also say they still can't find this UFO. It allegedly fell onto a frozen lake below and broke into pieces. Right, so they say they've been unable to find the wreckage, and then the next day another UFO was detected over Yukon, Canada. This one was described as small and cylindrical, and it was shot down by an American F-22 that was under the command of NORAD. And with this one, they also say they've been unable to find the wreckage of this UFO. Then later that night, another UFO was detected on radar in Montana, with F-15 scrambling out of Portland, flying to Montana, but once they're there, they can't find anything. We fast forward to Sunday afternoon, and that UFO over Montana is now over Lake Michigan. They close the airspace again to shoot it down, only then to lift the restriction. The U.S. then follows this object until it's over Lake Huron, where an American F-16 shoots it down. It was reportedly octagonal in shape, it had strings for a payload, but no payload attached. And again, they're saying they have no idea how it was floating and they still have to find the wreckage for it. So of course, one of the biggest questions with this is, what the hell are they shooting down? Well, when the Pentagon was...
Right, and why aren't they finding these UFOs that they're shooting down? Why? Okay, they said they shot them down, so where are they? Why can't you find them? Why is there no proof of them when you said that they broke and came into some frozen lake or whatever? Why aren't you finding the thing that you're shooting down if it's the size of a small car? Because that don't make sense to me. If you're shooting down something from the sky and you gonna see that it's the size of a small car, that's a pretty big small car that you're gonna see in the sky coming down. You're gonna know something. You're gonna be able to find where it's at or something. Like, I don't understand what's going on.
Was asked last night if this was aliens. They said they weren't ruling anything out. And so that answer obviously generated the type of response that you'd expect. And so they immediately backtracked and said there is no indication of extraterrestrial activity. So they're saying we didn't shoot down ET trying to phone home. So the question is, okay, well, are we looking at balloons again? And well, you have a Pentagon spokesperson saying they haven't been calling them balloons for a reason. Without the wreckage, or at least any information regarding the wreckage, it's hard to make an accusation as to what these are or who they belong to. But that also brings us to another key question. Why are we seeing so many incidents happening right now, seemingly out of nowhere? Well, after the Chinese spy balloon, NORAD removed the filters from the radars. Right, North America is a very busy airspace, so NORAD was filtering out mostly everything that wasn't an ICBM or a cruise missile. And reportedly, once they took those filters off, they suddenly started to find way more stuff in the airspace. Which also raises the question of, has North American airspace just been completely saturated with foreign spycraft all this time and we just didn't know it? And here's the thing, while we're waiting to get more information, the absence of it, that's really only fueled Chinese-American tensions. Right? Because after all the Chinese spy balloon stuff we saw earlier today, China accusing the US of having flown spy balloons over China more than 10 times. So the US denying these claims, saying any claim that the US government operates surveillance balloons over the PRC is false, and adding it is China that has a high-altitude surveillance balloon program for intelligence collection that it has used to violate the sovereignty of the US in over 40 countries across 5 continents. And here's the thing, I'm open to receive new information, but there are a number of experts saying there is reason to believe that China is lying here. Noting that for China, they just release a balloon and the jet stream takes it to the United States. But saying for the US to send a balloon over China, it would have to travel across the entire world to most, or several countries minimum, in order to fly over the country. And then Putin's at it again, yo. But this time, Russia's being accused of setting up a plot to overthrow the Moldovan government. According to Moldova's president, the plan involves military-trained saboteurs camouflaged in civilian clothes who will undertake violent actions, attack some state buildings, and even take hostages. And saying that the whole point of this is to try to get Moldova back into Russia's orbit, have it help in the war next door, and kill its plans to join the European Union. And it's actually not surprising that Russia might be trying to pull this off. Right? They used a lot of this playbook to take over Crimea back in 2014, so we know at the very least it's somewhat successful. Not to mention that Russia has a long history of involving itself in Moldovan affairs because they say they want to protect a small Russian minority in a breakaway region that borders Ukraine. And for Moldova, it might not actually take that much to topple the government, which has been struggling with crisis after crisis. First off, its prime minister recently resigned after 18 months of crisis. The oldest issue is the fact that it's already one of the poorest...
Okay, I've heard enough. If y'all want to go, listen to that story, you can. But also, there was an earthquake in Turkey. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but I want you to see this really quick, too.
The war in Ukraine. Then, the earthquake in Turkey and Syria has now killed a confirmed 36,000 people. That's according to their latest...
36,000 people died in Turkey from an earthquake. That is so many people. Like, that is just... Look at this. I don't even have words. Like, I don't have words for this. Oh my gosh, that is just... 36,000 people, y'all. Prayers to each and every one of their families, the people who lost loved ones. Like, my heart goes out to these people. Like, that is just terrifying.
Latest death toll, which far surpasses the expected 22,000 we first reported, making this the worst quake in decades. There's also tens of thousands of people injured, with many still being pulled out of the rubble a week after the initial quake, leading to jaw-dropping videos like this one of a woman who's been trapped there for 5 straight days, finally getting rescued. And while the rescuers are rightfully getting praised for their heroism, at the same time, the property developers are being condemned for their systematic neglect, with in fact Turkish authorities issuing arrest warrants for 113 of them for their involvement in the construction of buildings that collapsed during the earthquake. This because they allegedly skirted around regulations to rev up a construction boom in earthquake-prone regions. But also, some see this as an effort...
So you're telling me what he just said is they're arresting people who constructed these buildings because they were not properly building them. They were trying to work around all of these earthquake regulations, and instead they just kind of threw some buildings up. And now because of that, there were all of these thousands of casualties that happened due to that. So they're trying to arrest 113 people who put those buildings together. That's, you know what, that's a crying shame.
Effort by the government to divert attention away from its own failure to heed experts' warnings for years that many buildings were unsafe. But regardless of who is responsible here, people are still suffering in the affected areas, with millions homeless and below freezing temperatures on a nightly basis, and as many as 800,000 without adequate meals. And this, as the UN aid agency is warning that the death toll is likely to double in the coming days. And again, if you can and you want to help out, I'm going to put links down below where you can donate in the description. My heart goes out to everyone affected by this tragedy. That is where I'm going to end today's show. As always, thank you for being a part of these daily dives.
Well, I feel very stressed out now, guys. Yeah, my thoughts and prayers go with these people. Again, make sure you guys go over to Philip DeFranco's channel, give this video a like. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys very much, and I'll see you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe and like.